At Christmas dinner, my mom whispered, "Don't make this about you," when I tried to share my promotion news. So I didn't. I stayed quiet through the entire meal while everyone celebrated my sister's engagement, my brother's new car, even my cousin's vacation plans. But when dessert came and they started discussing my inheritance like I wasn't sitting right there, I stood up, grabbed my coat, and said 6 words that changed everything: "Consider me out of the family." The silence was deafening. My name is Margaret Chen, I'm 72 years old, and that Christmas dinner was 40 years ago. I'm telling this story now because I finally understand what that moment cost me and what it gave me. If you've ever been told to shrink yourself to make others comfortable, or been treated like your accomplishments threaten someone else's spotlight, hit that like button right now and share your thoughts in the comments. When is it time to choose yourself over family expectations? I read every single comment. Let's hear your stories. December 1984. I was 32 years old, recently divorced, and had just been promoted to senior accountant at a major firm in downtown Hartford. It was a huge achievement, especially for a woman in that era. I'd worked 70-hour weeks for 2 years, passed grueling certifications, and beaten out 5 male colleagues for the position. I was proud, genuinely proud, and I wanted to share that with my family. My mother, Dorothy, had called 3 weeks earlier to confirm I was coming to Christmas dinner at her house in West Hartford. "Of course you'll be there, Margaret. Family comes first." That was her mantra. Family comes first. Which really meant her version of family, her rules, her hierarchy of whose achievements mattered. I arrived at 4 p.m. carrying a chocolate cake I'd made from scratch and a bottle of expensive wine. The house was already full. My younger sister Linda was there with her new fiancé David, showing off her engagement ring to anyone who'd look. My brother Thomas Jr. had driven up from New York with his wife Susan, eager to talk about the BMW he'd just leased. My Aunt Ruth, Uncle Bill, and their 3 kids filled out the crowd. Mom opened the door wearing her best dress and immediately looked at what I was carrying. "A cake?" "Margaret, I specifically said I was handling dessert." "Now we'll have too much." "I just wanted to contribute," I said, stepping inside. "Well, find somewhere to put it. Everyone's in the living room." I walked through the house, past the formal dining room already set with Mom's china, into the kitchen where my aunt was helping with last-minute preparations. "Margaret." Aunt Ruth hugged me warmly. "How are you, dear? We haven't seen you since Thanksgiving." "I'm wonderful actually. I got promoted last month. Senior accountant. It's a big step up." Her face lit up. "That's fantastic. You must be so proud." Before I could respond, my mother's voice cut in from the doorway. "Ruth, can you check on the turkey? I think it needs basting." She turned to me. "Margaret, everyone's in the living room. Go be social." I joined the family gathering where Linda was holding court, literally standing in the center of the room while people admired her ring. "It's 2 carats, she was saying. David had it custom designed. The wedding will be in June at the country club." Everyone oohed and awed appropriately. My brother Tommy was talking to David about cars. "The BMW is incredible. 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds. You've got to come see it before I drive back to the city." I found a spot on the couch next to my cousin Marie. She smiled at me. "How have you been, Margaret? You look great." "Thanks. I've actually got some good news. I was just promoted at work to everyone, dinner is ready." Mom's voice rang out from the dining room. We all moved to the table, a beautiful spread of roast turkey, ham, mashed potatoes, vegetables, rolls, 3 different casseroles. Mom had outdone herself as usual. She directed us to our seats like a military operation. Linda and David at the head of the table here. Tommy and Susan next to them. Margaret, you're down at the end near the kitchen in case I need help bringing things out. I took my assigned seat at the far end, basically around the corner from everyone else. As we passed dishes and filled plates, the conversation naturally centered on Linda's wedding plans. We're thinking a garden ceremony, Linda said excitedly. Maybe 200 guests. I've already picked out bridesmaids' dresses. Margaret, you'll be one, of course. I'd be honored, I said. That sounds beautiful. And actually, I have some news too that I'd love to share. David's parents are paying for the honeymoon, Linda continued, not even pausing. 2 weeks in Italy. Rome, Florence, Venice. Can you imagine? The conversation flowed around her, everyone asking questions, offering suggestions. I waited for a break, a moment to share my own accomplishment. Tommy started talking about his work in finance in New York. The bonuses this year are going to be incredible. We're looking at apartments on the Upper East Side. Really make it official that we've arrived, you know? Uncle Bill asked questions about the real estate market. Susan discussed decorating plans. I took a breath and spoke a little louder. Speaking of career news, I was actually promoted last month. It's a really big deal because, Margaret, can you grab the butter from the kitchen? Mom interrupted. I forgot to put it on the table. I stared at her. Mom, I was just telling everyone about my promotion. She smiled tightly. That's nice, dear. The butter? I got up, went to the kitchen, found the butter, and brought it back. When I sat down, the conversation had moved on to my cousin Danny's high school football season. I tried twice more during the main course to mention my promotion. Each time, someone either talked over me or changed the subject. It wasn't malicious exactly, just a complete lack of interest in what I had to say. By the time Mom started clearing plates for dessert, I'd given up. I helped her carry dishes to the kitchen. As I set a stack of plates by the sink, I said quietly, Mom, I'm really proud of this promotion. It means a lot to me. She was arranging desserts on a serving tray, barely glancing at me. That's wonderful, sweetie. I'm sure you worked hard. I did. I wanted to tell everyone at dinner, but, Margaret. She turned to face me, her expression patient but firm. Everyone's here to celebrate Linda's engagement. This is her moment. Don't make this about you. The words landed like a slap. I wasn't trying to make it about me. I just wanted to share good news with my family. And you can, another time. Right now, let's focus on your sister. She's getting married. That only happens once. She picked up the dessert tray. It was like I wasn't there. Like the words I spoke dissolved in the air before reaching anyone's ears. 20 minutes into the meal, Victoria's phone rang. She answered it right at the table. Hey! Merry Christmas! Oh my God, yes, I got it. I love it. She stood up and walked into the living room, having a loud conversation with someone who wasn't even there while her dinner got cold. Emma and Connor were openly texting now, phones literally on the table next to their plates. Patricia was scrolling through social media between bites. James was reading work emails. Robert and Melissa were watching videos together, one earbud each. I set down my fork and looked around the table. My family, the people I'd given everything to for decades, couldn't even be present for one meal. They'd driven to my house, walked through my door, sat at my table, and eaten my food without truly seeing me once. The hurt settled deep in my chest, heavy and undeniable. Then something shifted inside me. Not anger exactly, but clarity. Sharp and absolute. I'd been waiting for them to value me, to appreciate me, to acknowledge me. But I couldn't make them do any of those things. What I could do was stop accepting this treatment. I stood up calmly, placing my napkin beside my plate. The movement was quiet, but something about it must have registered because Victoria, back from her phone call, looked up. "You okay, Mom?" "I'm fine," I said evenly. I walked to the fireplace where I'd placed an envelope that morning. A white envelope with legal papers inside. I picked it up and turned to face the dining room. They were all watching me now, probably confused about why I'd left the table. For the first time all evening, I had their complete attention. "I've made some changes today," I said clearly, holding up the envelope. "This is my revised will. I met with my attorney yesterday, and everything is finalized." The room went completely still. Forks stopped midair. Phones were lowered. Every single person was looking at me now. Really looking. "What are you talking about?" Victoria asked, standing up. "I'm talking about my estate," I continued calmly. "The house we're sitting in, worth approximately $2 million. The investment accounts and savings Thomas and I built over 40 years, worth about $3 million more. The life insurance policies, the pension benefits, everything. It totals around $5.5 million. James was on his feet now too. "Mom, why are you bringing this up at Christmas dinner?" "Because this is the first time any of you have actually looked at me all day," I said simply. "I've been invisible since you arrived. Not one of you has had a real conversation with me. Not one of you has asked how I'm doing, what's happening in my life, whether I need anything. You came here for a free meal and nothing more." "That's not fair," Patricia started. "Isn't it?" I interrupted. "I spent 3 days preparing this food. I decorated this entire house. I set this beautiful table. And from the moment you walked in, you've treated me like I'm furniture. Like I'm the help. You didn't even look at me when I served appetizers." Robert found his voice. "We're just comfortable, Mom. We don't need to make a big deal out of everything." "Comfortable," I repeated. "You're comfortable ignoring me. Comfortable being on your phones during a family dinner. Comfortable taking everything I do for granted." I held up the envelope again. "So yes, I made changes. Big ones. If you're watching this and feeling something right now, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below. Have you ever reached a breaking point with your family? What did you do? I want to know your story." Victoria's voice was tight. "What kind of changes?" "I've left everything to charity," I said simply. "Every single dollar." The explosion was immediate. "You can't be serious," James shouted. "That's our inheritance." "Your inheritance?" I asked quietly. Thomas and I worked our entire lives for what we have. We saved, we sacrificed, we planned. That money is ours, not yours. You're not entitled to a single penny just because you were born. Derek stepped forward. Margaret, you're clearly upset. Let's not make rash decisions when emotions are high. I'm not upset, I corrected him. And this isn't rash. I've been thinking about it for months. Today just confirmed what I already knew. Patricia tried a different approach. Mom, we love you. We're sorry if you felt ignored. It's been a stressful year for all of us. Work, kids, everything. We didn't mean to make you feel unimportant. You didn't mean to, I said. But you did. Repeatedly. This isn't about one bad Christmas. This is about years of being pushed to the margins of your lives. Of phone calls that last 3 minutes. Of visits where you can't wait to leave. Of being included only when it's convenient for you. Victoria's face was red. So you're punishing us? By giving away our inheritance to strangers? I'm not punishing anyone. I'm making a choice about my own assets. And the organizations I've chosen aren't strangers. They're charities that align with values I care about. Medical research, education, support for vulnerable people. Causes that matter. We matter. Robert said angrily. We're your children. Then act like it, I said firmly. Be my children. Not my occasional visitors. Not people who show up twice a year out of obligation. Be present in my life because you want to be, not because you're waiting for me to die so you can cash in. The room erupted into chaos. Everyone talking at once, voices overlapping, accusations flying. James said I was being manipulated. Victoria claimed I wasn't thinking clearly. Patricia suggested I needed to see a doctor. Robert accused me of favoritism, asking if I'd given everything to one of them instead. The teenagers looked uncomfortable, Emma actually putting down her phone. Melissa tried to back toward the door. The silence was hard but also liberating. I could breathe. I could focus on work without feeling guilty about not attending some family function. I made new friends, colleagues who respected my career. I joined a professional women's group where my achievements were celebrated, not minimized. I started dating again, casually, without my mother's commentary on my choices. Years passed. I built an impressive career, eventually making partner at my firm. I bought a house. I traveled. I lived life on my own terms. Occasionally, I'd hear updates through distant relatives. Linda got married, had 3 kids, got divorced. Tommy's marriage fell apart after 7 years. Mom retired, started having health issues. I felt pangs of guilt sometimes. Maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe I should have been the bigger person. But then I'd remember that feeling of being invisible at my own family's table, and I knew I'd made the right choice. 20 years after that Christmas dinner, I met Thomas at a business conference. Thomas Hayes, a widower, also in finance. We connected over shared experiences of family estrangement. He'd walked away from his controlling father years earlier. We understood each other in ways others couldn't. We married in a small ceremony 2 years later. Just us, a judge, and 2 friends as witnesses. It was perfect. Thomas and I built a good life together. We traveled, we worked, we supported each other's ambitions without competition or resentment. When he died 8 years ago in a car accident, I grieved deeply but not alone. The professional community I'd built, the friends I'd made, they all showed up. Last year, I got a call from a hospice nurse. "Ms. Chen? Your mother, Dorothy Martinez, listed you as next of kin. She's in our care now, end-stage heart failure. She's asking for you." I sat with that information for 2 days. 40 years since I'd walked out of that Christmas dinner. 40 years of no contact despite living in the same state. Did I owe her a visit? Did she deserve my forgiveness? I decided to go, not for her, but for myself. The hospice was clean and quiet. The nurse led me to a small room where my mother lay in bed, diminished by age and illness. At 92, she barely resembled the strong woman who'd raised me. I sat in the chair beside her bed. She opened her eyes slowly. "Margaret?" "I'm here, Mom." Tears rolled down her weathered cheeks. "I'm sorry." "For what?" I asked gently. "For making you small. For not celebrating you. For that Christmas when you walked out. You were right. I hadn't expected that. Why didn't you reach out?" "In 40 years? Pride," she admitted. Stubbornness. By the time I realized I was wrong, too much time had passed. I didn't know how to bridge that gap. I took her hand. It was light, fragile. "Tell me now. What would you say?" "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "You built an extraordinary life. Better than if you'd stayed and let us diminish you. I see that now. I wish I'd seen it then." We talked for 2 hours. She told me about Linda's struggles, about Tommy's problems, about how the family had fractured in other ways over the years. About regrets she carried for all her children, but especially for me. I was raised to believe women's worth came from marriage and children. When you divorced and focused on career, I didn't know how to value that. I was wrong. You were brave. Mom died 3 days later. I arranged the funeral, small and dignified. Linda came, older and worn down by life. Tommy was there with his third wife. We were cordial but not close. Too much time, too much distance. At the reception afterward, Linda approached me. "I'm sorry too. For that Christmas. For all of it. I was young and selfish." "We both were," I said. I was so focused on what everyone thought of my life choices that I couldn't see past my own hurt. "But you were right to leave," Linda said. "I wish I'd had your courage." I stayed, trying to please everyone, and ended up pleasing no one. Least of all myself. Tommy joined us. "Do you think we could, I don't know, try to be siblings again?" I considered it. 40 years was a long time. We were strangers now, shaped by completely different paths. "I don't know," I said honestly. "We're different people than we were. Maybe we start small. Coffee occasionally. See where it goes." "I'd like that," Tommy said. Linda nodded. We exchanged numbers, promised to stay in touch. Whether we will remains to be seen. But I'm open to the possibility in a way I wasn't before. Here's what I learned from that Christmas dinner 40 years ago and everything that came after. Sometimes making it about you isn't selfish, it's survival. Families can love you and still not value you the way you deserve. You can be right and it can still hurt. Walking away from toxic dynamics isn't abandonment, it's self-preservation. And you can't make people see your worth, you can only decide not to shrink for their comfort. That night in 1984, my mother told me not to make it about me. So I didn't. I made it about building a life where I didn't have to beg for recognition. Where my achievements stood on their own. Where I was valued for who I was, not who others needed me to be. I'm 72 now. I've had a successful career, a good marriage, meaningful friendships, and a life I'm proud of. Would things have been different if I'd stayed? If I'd swallowed my hurt and accepted my place at the end of the table? Maybe. Probably. But I wouldn't be who I am now. And I like who I am. That Christmas dinner changed the trajectory of my entire life. One moment of refusing to be invisible, one choice to walk away, opened up a completely different future. Was it worth the cost? The decades of estrangement? The missed family moments? I think so. Because the alternative was slowly disappearing into a role that erased me. And I was worth more than that. We all are. Before we finish, I need 3 things from you. First, hit that like button if this story resonated with you in any way. Second, share this with someone who needs permission to choose themselves. Third, comment below and tell me, have you ever had to walk away from family to protect who you are becoming? Did you regret it or find freedom? What would you do differently? I read every single comment because your stories matter just as much as mine. Remember, you are not selfish for refusing to shrink. You are not ungrateful for wanting acknowledgement. You are not wrong for walking away from people who make you feel invisible. Your worth doesn't depend on family validation. It exists regardless of whether anyone else sees it. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave the table where you're not being fed. My name is Margaret Chen, I'm 72 years old, and 40 years ago I chose myself. It was the hardest and best decision I ever made. Don't be afraid to make yours.